Welcome to my annual Top 50 Players ranking for Japan's Nippon Professional Baseball League. My process in making this list has evolved since my first one back in 2022, but I'll keep the introduction brief. This is a 2025 list, meaning I'm projecting the 50 best players in this upcoming season. Now, past results and track record can tell us a lot about how guys should perform, but I'm looking at more of the nuances like underlying numbers, second half trends, Asian curves, and just pure talent to come up with these rankings. On the bottom part of the screen, you'll see the players' 2024 NPB stats. For position players, that includes plate appearances, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS plus, 100 is league average, higher is better, defensive runs saved, and WAR. Do keep in mind, DRS is based on MLB fielding expectancies, so some players might look a bit worse than their actual value on the field when you compare it to their percentile within NPB. And for pitchers, that's innings pitched, ERA, ERA plus, once again, 100 is league average, higher is better, FIP minus, 100 is league average, lower is better, strikeout rate, walk rate, and WAR. You can find most of these numbers on my website at yakucosmo.com, except DRS, which is from SIS Baseball, and WAR, which is from Delta Graphs. And if you'd like more bonus content on my top 50, including honorable mentions who just missed the cut, please visit my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Also, check out Sports Look by Japan Forward, which covers a whole range of Japanese sports. I do some of the baseball social media for them. Japanball.com, where I do weekly NPB newsletters, and the World Baseball Network, where I do weekly NPB articles. And now, without further ado, let's jump in with number 50, Chunichi Dragons rookie, Yumeto Kanemaru. For the first time ever, I'm including a rookie on my top 50 because Kanemaru is a slam dunk generational talent. The Southpaw put up ridiculous numbers in his 4 years at Kansai University, with a sub-1 ERA and 312 strikeouts across 239 innings, including 54 consecutive shutout frames in his senior season. The Kansai Big Six League isn't the absolute best in Japan, but the competition level is still very, very high, and Kanemaru simply dominated with a low to mid-90s fastball that has good ride and a plethora of effective secondaries in the slider, splitter, changeup, and slow curve. I fully believe the 22-year-old will be one of the best left-handed pitchers in NPB from day one. Number 49 belongs to Nippon Ham Fighters outfielder Shun Mizutani. After being selected in the active player draft, NPB's Rule 5 equivalent, from the SoftBank Hawks last winter, Mizutani finally got an opportunity to prove himself at the NPB level and did not disappoint. The half-Nigerian youngster was named to the All-Star team despite not getting regular playing time until late May. Now, he tailed off a bit towards the end of the season, but still finished with a 135 OPS plus in 97 games and ranked in the 98th percentile in hard hit rate. He needs to work on some of his swing decisions, but the signs are very, very positive for Mizutani entering his age 24 season. 48 goes to Yomiuri Giants outfielder Yoshihiro Maru, a former MVP on the decline. I think his game is actually aging pretty well though, because he's been able to make some key adjustments even with his athleticism and game power falling off. In 2021, his strikeout rate climbed all the way to 26%, and it seemed like he was moving in the direction of a 3 true outcomes hitter. But since then, he's managed the K rate in the 15% range for 3 straight seasons, and he's still walking at a high clip. And he's maintained just enough speed and pop to be a well above average offensive asset, so I expect that to continue in 2025. Number 47 is outfielder Hiromi Oka of the Lotte Marines. The 33-year-old is definitely a late bloomer because a few years ago he was no more than a journeyman fourth outfielder, but he's evolved into a great hitter with an 800 OPS since 2023. He's done this by being very disciplined with a low chase rate, bringing his OBP above 370, hitting the ball on the ground less, and improving his splits against same-handed pitching. Alongside plus base running and average-ish defense, Oka is one of the more underrated players in NPB. At number 46, it's first baseman Yusuke Oyama, who was a free agent this winter but decided to re-up with the Hanshin Tigers. Now, he probably wishes that his contract year could have been 2023 when he put up a career-best 6.5 WAR and was in MVP talks, but Even in a down year in 2024, he managed a 127 OPS+, and I'm sure he can get back to 20-plus homers if they liven up the balls a little bit. He's also one of the most patient hitters in the league with a 12th percentile swing rate, which might go up under the management of Kyuji Fujikawa, but I see Oyama as a guy with a very high floor, and his true talent level is probably somewhere in between what he showed in that great 2023 and disappointing 2024. In the 45th spot, Hideto Asamura of the Rakuten Eagles. Asamura has been a perennial top 10 player in NPB for the better part of the last decade, but Father Time might be catching up to him as he only hit 14 home runs last year, which is way down from the 25 to 30 that we're used to. That said, the 34-year-old still has one of the highest walk rates in Japan at 12.3%. He still puts the ball in the air a lot, and he's an absolute Iron Man, having not missed a single game since 2015. The best ability is availability after all. Now, he's a liability on defense and on the bases these days, which weighs down his value as a DH, with occasional starts at first or third, but I still believe Asamura can be a premier slugger as he'll be reaching 2,000 career hits and 300 homers in 2025. At 44, Chunichi Dragons infielder Hiroki Fukunaga. Only 11 players managed an OBP over 360 and a slug over 425 in NPB last season. Fukunaga was one of them. And while the 28-year-old has gone a bit under the radar due to his lack of a clear defensive home and playing for a losing team, the third-year pro has quietly put up great offensive numbers with a 130 WRC+ across 727 career plate appearances. He was helped by a high BABIP last year, so you can expect a bit of regression, but he makes hard contact consistently and has showcased elite plate skills on the farm with a walk rate over 17% and a chase rate below 20%. So I think Fukunaga is going to be a big part of the Dragons' rebuild. Expect new manager Kazuki Inoue to pencil him in as the everyday third baseman. Number 43 is left-handed pitcher Haruto Inoue. The Yomiuri Giants youngster put up incredible numbers on the farm in 2023 and finally got a fair shot on the top team in 2024, where he really demonstrated what made him one of the league's top prospects. He started the year as a swingman but earned his way onto the rotation midway through and managed to strike out a quarter of the batters he saw over 10 starts. Combined with his reliever innings, he had an elite 80 FIP- and a solid 106 ERA+, putting him on the map as one of NPB's best up-and-coming arms. His fastball gets a ton of whiffs relative to the velocity, and his slider and splitter are both excellent put-away pitches, so I'm excited to see what Inoue can do over a full season. At 42, we go across town to the Yakult Swallows outfielder Yasutaka Shiomi. I feel like we've been robbed of Shiomi's prime a little bit because at his best, this guy was one of the most dynamic power speed threats in the game. Sadly, injuries have kept him to just 82 games since 2023. But the fact that he's still been a good and even at times elite contributor when he has been healthy gives me hope. In fact, his strikeout rate has actually been trending downward, and a 120 to 130 OPS+ with average center field defense still seems like a reasonable outcome for Shiomi. It's all about staying on the field. Number 41 goes to his teammate Domingo Santana, one of the most successful foreign talents in recent NPB history. This will be year 5 for him in Japan, and if this was purely a hitting-based ranking, he could easily be in the top 5 with a career 151 WRC+. 2024 was his best season yet, finishing 3rd in NPB in OPS at 905 and just missing out on the Central League batting title. Now yes, he's probably the worst defender in the league and that gets exposed a lot out in left with no DH role, but I don't think WAR can fully capture his value, and as long as Santana is raking, he'll be one of the most prolific run producers in Japan. Getting the top 40 started, it's DNA-based southpaw Katsuki Azuma, who just had a little bit of a scandal. He might only sit 89 miles per hour on his four-seamer, but Azuma has displayed perhaps the highest floor in NPB since 2023. Coming off several major injuries, he's actually turned into a workhorse with a league-best 355 innings over the past 2 years, and he's done so with an amazing 2.08 ERA. His K rate is only in the 19 to 20% range, but he makes up for it with an elite sub-4% walk rate and lots of soft contact off a deep 6-pitch mix. He's not going to blow you away with the stuff, but he gets a ton of outs efficiently, and that's what pitching's all about. In the 39th spot, Seibu Lions shortstop Sosuke Genda. I'm not sure what it is about guys ranked in this range having some off-the-field scandals, but that aside, Genda has had a flawless record on the field when it comes to being among the league's top defenders and base runners, while also maintaining very consistent hitting production with a WRC plus in the 80 to 95 range in every year of his career dating back to 2017. Now, some of his defensive metrics aren't quite as elite anymore, but he's still good enough to just rack up WAR with his glove alone. At 38, another shortstop, Kenta Imamiya for the SoftBank Hawks. The 33-year-old has had his ups and downs over the years, and he's mainly known for having 400 career sacrifice bunts, but really what Imamiya should be getting credit for is his plus tools on both sides of the ball. He's had a WRC plus of 96 or higher in 6 of his last 7 seasons, including a WRC plus of 115 or higher in 2 of his last 3 years. So he's actually becoming a better hitter as he gets older, and on top of that, he's been top 5 in shortstop DRS in 3 of the last 4 seasons. So Imamiya is definitely a great asset. At number 37, Rakuten Eagles outfielder Ryosuke Tatsumi. I had him around this range last year, and the 28-year-old had a career year with a 294, 353, 419 slash line with 41 extra base hits and 20 steals. Now, I have a hard time bumping up his evaluation from here because he's rated terribly at center field over the past few years despite his Gold Glove reputation, but he is still a reliable 3 to 4 WAR player regardless. Number 36, fellow center fielder Ukyo Shuto. The SoftBank Hawks speed demon doesn't have the hit tool of Tatsumi, but he can steal twice as many bags while playing elite defense. Of course, Shuto gained some global recognition when he almost passed up Ohtani on the bases in the WBC semifinals, and that basically sums up his entire value to a team. The 28-year-old consistently ranks at the top of the leaderboards in every metric measuring running, like fastest time to first, sprint speed, and ultimate base running. That gives him an incredibly high floor, and basically everything else you get with the bat is a bonus. In the 35th spot, Shogo Sakakura. The Hiroshima Card backstop has been integrating himself as a mainstay on the national team for a couple years now, and deservedly so. He's at an OPS plus of 127 or higher in each of his past 4 seasons. He struggled in the first half of 2024 and entered the All-Star break with a meager 556 OPS, but went ballistic after the All-Star break with a 911 OPS to finish at a respectable 740. He's also an above-average defender behind the plate and plays about a third of his games at first base, so keeping that bat in the lineup is certainly a plus. Number 34, Yomiuri Giants second baseman Naoki Yoshikawa. I think I was higher than most people on Yoshikawa last year as I had him inside my top 50, but he surpassed even my expectations as he played in all 143 games and maintained a 123 OPS plus with an elite 10% strikeout rate and 4.2 WAR. But his best asset was the glove, logging 8 DRS at the Keystone with incredibly rangy defense. Now, I'm not fully convinced on his hitting based on the batted ball data, but when you compare him to similar guys like Takumu Nakano or Shuta Tonosaki that might do certain things better than him, I trust Yoshikawa's all-around game the most. Coming in at number 33, Hanshin Tigers pitcher Shoki Murakami. The 2023 CL MVP took a small step back in 2024, running into some trouble in the second half, but still managing a very solid year with a 111 ERA+, and good peripheral numbers to back it up. He had a bit of a reverse splits problem with only a 33% ground ball rate to righties, leading to much more damage against them, which was unusual because he dominated with a K rate over 30% against same-handed hitting in 2023. So I'd like to see him maybe tinker with his pitch mix a bit, but otherwise, he's still got great command, he's still very young, and he's still a top-of-the-rotation arm. Next at 32, Shosei Togo of the Yomiuri Giants. 2024 was Togo's best showing yet as he tossed 180 innings of sub-2 ERA ball with a 22.2% K rate. Now, I'm a bit worried about Togo's crazy workload over the past couple of years when you include things like the WBC, Premier 12, and the playoffs, but there's no doubt that the 24-year-old has firmly established himself as one of Japan's premier run preventers and workhorses. Now, when it comes to the stuff, I like it, but his pitch specs don't really pop off the page like other elite arms, and he's a bit susceptible to the long ball, so that's why I'm probably a bit lower on him than most, but don't get me wrong, I expect him to be excellent in 2025, even factoring in some regression. 31 is SoftBank Hawks first baseman Hotaka Yamakawa. After a fall from grace in Saitama, the slugger joined the Empire in Fukuoka and led NPB in homers and RBI with 34 and 99 respectively in his first year with his new team. When he's hot, Yamakawa can be one of the most feared hitters in all of Japan. He also hits the ball incredibly hard, but the rising strikeout rate and chase rates are definitely something to keep an eye on. He should be fine for 2025 because he brings top-class power, albeit with some inconsistency. Long-term outlook, though, is more suspect. Getting the top 30 going, Nippon Ham Fighters righty Koki Kitayama. The 25-year-old may not have the longest resume yet, but his electric stuff gives us a ton to dream about. He's quite fastball reliant right now, but it's a damn good hitter with a 22% whiff rate, which is quite a bit better than even some of the hardest throwers in the league like Roki Sasaki, Hiroto Takahashi, and Tatsuya Imai. On top of that, he's got an excellent curveball and splitter, and there were times last season where he already looked like one of the top pitchers in all of NPB. So if he gets a bigger workload this year, I'm confident he's going to shove. At number 29, right-hander Hiroto Saiki of the Hanshin Tigers. The 26-year-old has had a sub-2 ERA since 2022, and we finally got to see a full season from him last year as he got 25 starts under his belt with the third best FIP in NPB among qualifiers. His fastball just explodes out of his hand, and it was clocked at over 2,900 RPM at the Premier 12, so he can just pound the top of the zone with it and get a ton of swing and miss. He still has some room to grow when it comes to the secondaries. The splitter is good but not great, and the slutter is fine, so that's where I see the next evolution of his game. And he's had some issues maintaining the higher K rates as the season's gone on, so better management of stamina will also go a long ways. In the 28th position, DNA Baystar's third baseman Toshiro Miyazaki. The 36-year-old seems to be defying the Asian curve because I always expect some regression, but instead, he's actually had two of his best seasons ever by WRC Plus these past 2 years. His combination of above-average power and elite bat-to-ball is truly a rare commodity, as he's maintained a slug over 440 and a K rate under 10% for 9 straight years. In fact, last season, it was at a career-best 6.2%, which was easily number 1 in NPB. He does get banged up a lot, and maybe Father Time will eventually catch up to that production, but his in-zone contact rate north of 94% has helped him maintain this incredible floor, and it's clear that Miyazaki, for the time being, is still a premier hitter. Number 27, his teammate Yudai Yamamoto. DNA has the number 1 prospect in Japan on the way in Shion Matsuo, who will likely end up splitting time with Yamamoto behind the plate, but for now, Yamamoto is clearly a top 2 or 3 catcher in NPB, and he just keeps getting better. In 2024, he won the SIS Baseball Fielding Bible at catcher with a staggering 26 DRS. He's an elite framer, controls the running game well, and is regarded as an excellent game caller. What more can you ask for? He also had a 121 OPS plus last year, which I'm not super confident he can maintain, but he should still be above average, which makes him an incredibly valuable two-way catcher. In the 26th position, Hanshin Tigers slugger Teraraki Sato. We're still waiting on that next big evolution of Sato's game, as he's quite streaky and inconsistent, but we know he has one of the best power ceilings in NPB. His 2024 WRC Plus of 130 was right in line with his career norms, and even with a K rate between 25 to 30%, he really may just be one adjustment away from going supernova. If he chases less outside the zone, especially on breaking balls, he can increase the walk rate, and that should have a ripple effect on the rest of his hitting. Now, defensively, Sato is pretty abysmal at third base, so I kind of view him as like a Japanese Rafael Devers, but I'm still a big believer in his profile. At the halfway mark now, and it's the Franimal, Franmil Reyes. It's not easy for a foreigner to rake in Japan in this day and age, but that's exactly what the Nippon Ham Fighters DH did, especially after the All-Star break last season, as he led NPB with a 1,032 OPS. It took him a few months to adjust to Japanese pitching, and obviously he doesn't play defense, which limits his value, but he looks like a top 5 hitter in the league at this point. He's at the very top of the hard hit rate leaderboard as well, and that's just so unique and valuable, especially in the dead ball era. Getting back to some pitching at number 24, Tatsuya Imai of the Seibu Lions. 2024 was Imai's best year to date as he won the NPB strikeout title after having a 26.3% K rate in 173 innings. So that's the good news, but the bad news is he also led all qualifiers with a 9.8% walk rate. Now, that's certainly not a death sentence by any means, but it does make him pretty volatile from week to week. That being said, when he's on, his slider is one of the nastiest pitches in the game, and his fastball at 94 to 97 miles per hour can be pretty overpowering. I truly believe he has the ceiling of a top 3 starter in Japan, though with a slightly lower floor, so I'm playing it safe with this ranking. At number 23, Oryx Buffalo southpaw Ryuhei Sotani. The 24-year-old has been one of my favorite prospects to track over the past few years, and he broke out big time in 2024 with some gaudy numbers, albeit in a smaller sample. For pitchers with at least 100 innings, he was top 5 in both FIP and strikeout rate minus walk rate, as well as top 10 in chase rate and CSW percent. All great indicators of him being a legitimate frontline starter for years to come. Next up at 22, another southpaw in the form of Chihiro Sumida of the Seibu Lions. I'm probably higher on Sumida than just about anyone, and a big reason for that is because his changeup is one of the most diabolical weapons in the league. He can cut it to both sides of the plate, he can fade it, he can spike it, and he can just outright dominate with it, especially against righties. He had a bit of a slow start last season, so the ERA didn't look too great, but he really got it going in the second half and ended up finishing in the 96th percentile among all pitchers in CSW percent. If you haven't caught on already, I bet Sumida is going to improve even more in 2025 and is going to absolutely shove. 21 goes to Seiya Hosokawa, who finally got an opportunity to prove himself with the Chunichi Dragons in 2023 after being taken from DNA in the active player draft and has not looked back. I'll be the first one to admit I had my doubts about him going into 2024 as possibly a flash in the pan because of his high whiff rate, but he actually got better and way more consistent, so now I'm all in. Last season, he raised his OPS plus from 143 to 172 while slightly improving his strikeout to walk ratio. Now, his 377 BABIP points to some likely regression, but he's also in the 90th percentile in hard hit rate, and his batted ball distribution is pretty healthy, so I'm not too concerned there. And while he is a bad defender in right field, he's not totally unplayable, so he's basically just the better version of Domingo Santana, except he happens to play in a pitcher's park. Entering the top 20 now with Nippon Ham Fighters third baseman Kotaro Kiyomiya. If you told me Kiyomiya would even sniff the top 50 halfway through 2024, I would have said you're crazy because he was going up and down the farm and had 0 homers until the second week of July. But then he got on a roll in the final 3 months, morphing into one of the best sluggers in the game to end the year with 15 dingers, an 898 OPS, and one of just 3 players in NPB with an OBP above 370 and an ISO above 220. The 25-year-old finally seems to be living up to that child prodigy tag put on him many years ago, and 2025 could be when he puts it all together over a full year. Moving on to the 19th spot with right-handed pitcher Atsuki Taneichi. He may not be Roki Sasaki, but ever since returning from Tommy John, Taneichi has realized his potential to become one of the most overpowering starters in Japan. He'll have that added pressure as the ace of the staff with Sasaki gone, but the 26-year-old is really poised for a career year. Last season, he was top 3 among qualifiers in both K rate and FIP despite an underwhelming ERA plus of 100. He does have starts where he's out of whack and totally ineffective, which is probably a product of his over-reliance on the fastball, but if he trusts in that hard splitter and maybe starts to incorporate that knuckle curve more, I think we can expect more consistency and elite run prevention from the Lotte Marines ace in 2025. At number 19, southpaw Levon Moinello. The SoftBank Hawks gambled by moving Moinello into the rotation last year, basically out of necessity due to their lack of high-caliber starters in the post-Senga era, and it totally paid off as the Cuban went on to win the PL ERA title. It was really a seamless transition for him, which makes sense because he always had a really deep arsenal for a reliever, but still, 163 innings for a career reliever was very impressive. Now, I am a bit concerned about how he'll hold up in year 2 after his first taste of a starter's workload, but there's never been a question about his talent level. He spins the ball as good as anyone with a nasty curveball, slider, and changeup, which he's able to mix and match well depending on handedness, and he still has above average velo even after taking a few ticks off to pace himself. Needless to say, he is a true ace. Speaking of aces, Takahisa Hayakawa comes in at number 17. It finally happened. This was the Hayakawa we've all been waiting for. The former top prospect had a breakout year to remember as he pitched to a 2.54 ERA across 170 innings, while leading NPB in K-BB% among qualifiers. Now, he's still prone to the long ball, but that obviously wasn't as big of a deal with the dead balls, and you can honestly make a lot of parallels with him to Shota Imanaga's early trajectory. He's comfortable climbing the ladder with the heater, the changeup is a righty killer, and he has good ground ball weapons in the splitter and curve. So I'm really high on Hayakawa anchoring that shaky Rakuten Eagles rotation for 2025. Yet another left-handed arm at 16, Foster Griffin of the Yomiuri Giants. Now, some people might be surprised at this one because Shosei Togo and Tomoyuki Sugano were clearly the best pitchers for the Giants last year, but if we're being objective, the 29-year-old American has earned his place as a top 5 pitcher in NPB. He had a really bad start to the year in 2024, but made some adjustments in June, primarily with the addition of a sweeping slider, and that was a game changer. Before the slider, he had a 5.59 ERA, and after, he had a 2.51 ERA. That pitch absolutely ate up same-handed hitters, and it helped him finish the season with a better strikeout rate minus walk rate than even Roki Sasaki. Going back to 2023, Griffin now has a 2.74 FIP in 40 career starts, so it's time to put some respect on his name, and I fully expect Griffin to eventually return to MLB and become successful like a Miles Michaelis or Eric Fetty. At number 15, Nippon Ham Fighters ace Hiromi Ito. He's had his ups and downs, but Ito's final 2 months of 2024 proved that when he's at his best, there's almost no one better. Of course, he had a good year overall with a 1.15 ERA plus in 176 frames, but it's the end to the season that really makes me hopeful for 2025. In September, it was a 1.32 ERA, 1.55 FIP, 27% K rate, and 4% walk rate, while averaging over 8 innings a start. His velocity was up from 90-91 to 93-94, and he started throwing his slider more, which is his best weapon amongst a very, very deep and dynamic arsenal. So if we get that version of Ito for a full season, then he's absolutely a Sawamura Award contender. But even if we don't, he's exhibited a consistently good floor, so the 27-year-old is pretty low risk and high reward. Coming in at the 14th spot, Ito's teammate Chusei Manami, a 2-time reigning recipient of the SIS Baseball Fielding Bible Defensive Player of the Year award. Manami is a total stud in right field with great routes, quick instincts, and an absolute hose of an arm that rivals Ichiro and Yoenis Cespedes. Now, he is still a bit volatile at the plate, but he's lowered his strikeout rate and improved his approach significantly over the past 2 years, and he has some of the best raw power in the country. It's just about whether or not he can take that next step to barrel up balls more consistently. So the elite defense provides him a very, very high floor, and at 24 years old, he still has plenty of room to grow and show off that offensive explosiveness. That's what makes him a top 15 player and one of the young faces of the league. At number 13, Roya Kurihara of the SoftBank Hawks. Kurihara was trending up and up until he tore his ACL in the first week of the 2022 season. He came back in 2023 with a move to the hot corner, but just didn't look very comfortable and had a very disappointing season. 2024, though, was a completely different story as he finished second in NPB in WAR at 6.5. 20 homers in 140 games, an 807 OPS, and Gold Glove defense with 8 DRS at third. He makes hard contact and pulls a ton of fly balls consistently, which is very conducive for power, even in this deflated offensive era. And I just think there's no denying that the 28-year-old is currently one of the top all-around players in NPB. In the 12th position, Hanshin Tigers outfielder Shota Morishita. I made a bold decision to include him in my top 50 last year despite the lack of a long resume, but I think it paid off. The 24-year-old was second in NPB, only behind Reyes with a 996 OPS after the All-Star break, and finished 7th overall among qualifiers in OPS Plus for the season. He also had a fantastic tournament for Samurai Japan at the Premier 12 with an OPS north of 1,000 while hitting cleanup. It's only been 2 pro seasons for him, but you can already tell he has this natural feel for hitting, as well as the ability to make adjustments to his swing and approach to keep getting better and better. Dare I say he reminds me of a young Seiya Suzuki. Morishita is a superstar in the making. Just outside the top 10, Oryx Buffalo's fireballer Shunpeita Yamashita. I know I'm going to get pushback for this one. He's unproven, he's volatile, he's injury prone. I get all that. But at the end of the day, talent will always come through, and Yamashita is one of the most talented Japanese pitchers ever. He has top 10 pitcher in MLB type ceiling. A rocky start to the year with bad control issues, had his ERA at 6.38 in July as he was moved to the bullpen. But what looked like a completely washed season turned into a dream as the 2023 PL Rookie of the Year finished the season with 6 starts of at least 5 innings pitched, allowing just 7 runs overall. His strikeout totals in those games? 9, 7, 9, 8, 12, and 11. That's a K rate approaching 40% in August and September, with a much more respectable walk rate too. The stuff is just so electric. The four-seamer sits 96 to 99 with elite ride. His curveball has superb spin, his splitter is sick, and he's now working on a changeup. So I know there's some risk here, but if you agree that it's not how you start, it's how you finish, then Yamashita is absolutely a top 3 starter in NPB already. Alright, we've finally reached the top 10, and getting it started is the legend himself, Yuki Yanagita. It was another season derailed by injuries for the SoftBank Hawks superstar, but when he was on the field, Yanagita was still an elite player. Now, the power output wasn't really what we're used to seeing, but he still crushed the baseball with 91st percentile hard hit rate and walked as much as he struck out for a 404 on base. His WRC Plus hasn't dipped below 150 in over a decade, which is just an insane run of consistent dominance, and he even rated well in right field this past year, which is surprising considering his defensive drop-off in previous seasons. Now, I know Yanagita at 36 isn't exactly the same as Yanagita at 26, but I also know that he's going to just keep adding to his legacy as one of the greatest outfielders in NPB history. Number 9 is Hiroto Takahashi of the Chunichi Dragons. The 22-year-old did his best Yoshinobu Yamamoto impression with a 1.38 ERA, giving him the CL title. Truly a historic season that should propel him to really take over NPB and make this the Takahashi era. His bread and butter are a mid to high 90s fastball and a devastating splinker, which is one of the nastiest and most unique pitches in Japan. On top of being top 5 in K rate among qualifiers, he also led in ground ball percentage by a wide margin at 61%, leading to just 1 home run allowed all season. Now, of course, playing at a big pitcher's park like Nagoya Dome helps his cause, and his game is catered perfectly to dominate at home, but I don't think that should take away from just how special he is. I expect a bigger workload for him in 2025, and that should probably make him the Sawamura frontrunner. Next up at number 8, Oryx Buffalo's backstop, Tomoya Mori. I think Mori is kind of underrated in Japan, which sounds crazy to say because he does have an MVP, but the offensive production he provides at a premium position just can't be valued enough. He consistently strikes out under 15% of the time, despite taking some massive hacks with a career 460 slug, which is a very impressive combination of contact and power, and he's also not as bad defensively as some make him out to be, though the team does like to DH him and even stick him in right field at times. Mori is the type of guy you can build an entire lineup around, and he's oddly been alternating between elite and good seasons, 7.8 WAR in 2019, 2.5 in 2020, 7.1 in 2021, 3.7 in 2022, 5.0 in 2023, and 2.8 in 2024. If that trend continues, he'll go ballistic again in 2025. Coming in at 7, Hanshin Tigers star Koji Chikamoto. The defensive metrics didn't like him much last year, but he has rated well in the past, and Chikamoto is just one of the most well-rounded table setters in NPB. He's gotten on base close to a 375 clip over the past 2 years, and he's won the stolen base title in 5 of his 6 NPB seasons. Now, there was a time when I was hoping he could maybe grow into some more game power, but I think we know exactly what Chikamoto can do at this point, and that's not a bad thing. Feisty ABs with tons of balls in play, a 290 average, 25 to 30 swipes, 5 to 10 homers, that's an elite package in this league. At the number 6 spot, the highest ranked pitcher for 2025, Hiroya Miyagi. Yoshinobu Yamamoto may be gone, but Miyagi has stepped into his shoes nicely as the ace of the Oryx Buffaloes, and he is an absolute bulldog. Last season, he missed 2 months with an injury and still almost got to the qualified innings minimum. The dude flat out wants to be out there to give his club as many innings as he can, and not only that, but they're some of the highest quality innings you're going to find as well. Among pitchers with at least 140 innings, Miyagi was number 1 or number 2 in pretty much every important category: FIP, K-BB percent, CSW percent, and he has 3 different secondaries to offer with a whiff rate over 30% each. So he has plus stuff, and he even knows how to locate it perfectly to get the most efficient results. It's a close race at the top, but in my opinion, Miyagi is the best starting pitcher in NPB. Getting the top 5 started with DNA Baystars first baseman Tyler Austin. The American burst onto the scene in 2020, slugging over 600 in his debut NPB season, but injuries kept him to just 65 games. The following year, he did it again with another 600 slug campaign, this time in 107 games. But he only hit 1 home run between 2022 and 2023 as he simply couldn't stay healthy. And I thought that would probably mark the end of his career, but instead, Austin came back in 2024 and slugged 600 again with 25 homers in 106 games. So it wasn't a full season yet again because he is seemingly made out of glass, but the 33-year-old has proven that if he's healthy, and it's a big if, he's going to lead the league in slugging every time. He also won the batting title last year, so there's more to his game than just hitting bombs, and his 197 OPS Plus led all qualified hitters. Austin strikes fear into the hearts of pitchers, and I can only pray that we actually do get to see a full 143 games from him one day, because that could be historic. At number 4, Yomiuri Giants superstar Kazuma Okamoto, who kind of plays all over the field, not particularly well, but that versatility is still valuable, especially when you can post a 167 OPS Plus on top of it. Okamoto is one of the best in the business at barreling pitches and pulling fly balls, which is how he's managed to hit 27 or more homers in 7 consecutive seasons. The 28-year-old is also an Ironman, missing only 8 games in total since his first full year in 2018, and his plate skills are continuing to improve as well. 2024 saw him striking out just 15.9% of the time, the lowest mark of his entire career. Okamoto is virtually guaranteed 30 to 40 tanks a year. He's one of the best sluggers of this generation, period. Speaking of generational sluggers though, Munetaka Murakami comes in at number 3. Now, I know his last 2 seasons have been pretty underwhelming by his own lofty standards. His K rate has ballooned all the way to 30%, and while 33 homers may have netted him the CL home run title last year, it's not even close to the 56 he hit back in 2022 when he broke the single-season Japanese-born player record. There are some serious concerns about Murakami when it comes to things like defense and in-zone contact rate going into his final season with the Yakult Swallows before being posted to MLB. That being said, his floor is a top 10 hitter in NPB, in large part because he's one of the most selective hitters in the world with a chase rate at just 25% and a walk rate at 17% last year. So even at his absolute worst, Murakami is getting on base at a 380 clip with a 230 ISO, and at his best, well, he had a 460 on base and 390 ISO. Was 2022 a complete outlier season? Maybe, but we can still dream on Murakami-sama returning in 2025 for one last hurrah in Japan. Number 2 is Shugo Maki of the DNA Baystars. A hallmark of consistency throughout his young NPB career, Maki has hit between 22 and 29 homers, hit between 33 and 39 doubles, and had an OPS plus between 149 and 156 every year since 2021. He also added a speed component to his game in 2024, going 11 for 11 on stolen base attempts. Now, Maki doesn't walk as much as some other premier hitters, but being a free swinger is probably a good thing for the 26-year-old as he rarely swings and misses and struck out just 10.5% of the time last season. The defense at second base does leave a bit to be desired, but he does make some highlight reel plays from time to time, and he actually rated positively back in 2023. So I don't think he's necessarily terrible, and he just does so many other things exceptionally well that Maki is absolutely deserving of this ranking. And the number 1 NPB player of 2025 goes to Kensuke Kondo, outfielder for the SoftBank Hawks. Well, he did it again. If anyone thought his 2023 was a fluke in terms of the power, Kondo basically mirrored his career season with another 300, 400, 500 slash line and 8 WAR. Of course, Kondo has always been one of the best pure hitters in the game, dating back to his days playing alongside Shohei Ohtani on the Nippon Ham Fighters, but it wasn't until he visited Driveline and signed with the Hawks that he was able to tap into that pop. It was the final ingredient to rounding out Kondo as a perfect player. He is clearly the best player in the world outside of MLB right now. His 143 game averages since 2023, 33 doubles, 24 homers, 8 steals, 106 walks, a 960 OPS, a 190 OPS plus, 18 DRS in left field. All hail Kensuke Kondo, the #1 player in Japan. So there you go, my top 50 players in Nippon professional baseball. Obviously, this is just my subjective analysis, but I did my best to use all the data at my disposal to come up with the best possible projections for this upcoming season. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more NPB content in English.